I'm here with Dr. Chris Kirkby, founder of Fauna Forever, just outside the Fauna Forever headquarters, and we're going to have a talk about ecotourism and its impacts in the Madre de Dios region and what kind of things we can do to improve it. The first thing I wanted to ask you about was key challenges which are facing ecotourism.
Ecotourism, which has been developing here for the last 35 years or more, currently has sort of three principal sort of challenge types. There are environmental challenges, obviously, there are economic challenges, and also social or developmental challenges.
Yeah, sure.
So within the environmental challenge theme, the important ones are going to be, obviously, the impact of third parties on the actual activities and the places that tourists and ecotourists visit. So, for example, we have an issue at the moment currently with gold mining in Madre de Dios, which is a big money earner. And the issue here is that gold mining is actually destroying forest in areas that are also very good and attractive for ecotourists. Overall, tourism is having a beneficial effect on wildlife populations here. Not only is it protecting forests that might otherwise have been overhunted, we're seeing hunted species return and increase in abundance. But we're also seeing species that you would otherwise think would be scared away from tourists, by tourists. They're actually becoming habituated to tourists in the forest used by tourists. And therefore they're actually becoming easier to see, which is a good sign.
And can you tell me something more about the economic challenges of ecotourism here in the region?
Again, the economic challenges that I see at the moment is one of inflation. At the moment, the local costs for operating lodges have gone up tremendously as a consequence of gold mining, really. Extractive activities from the forest and the immigration of people into this region. That's pushed prices up a lot because there are many more people wanting a limited supply of goods and services. So there is inflation in goods and service prices here, which is going to knock on to the pricing that lodges have. So the underlying tour prices are probably going to be affected, and therefore that may well be pushing down profit margins for lodges. And if you have lower profit margins, then you have lower opportunities to protect your land. So that's one of the issues.
And what kind of key opportunities would you see in this particular area that ecotourism can bring in?
Well, again, I mean, when it comes to opportunities, there are many. And again, I see the opportunities from sort of economic point of view and from an educational point of view. So in terms of economics, there are huge opportunities here for ecotourism entrepreneurs and investors to make quite a lot of money. And if they do it right, in the right way, there are ways that they can actually make decent incomes and actually pass on benefits to lots of local people who are also getting increasingly involved in the activity. The region markets itself, as the biodiversity capital of Peru. So just that title is something that's going to attract tourists anyway. So there are big opportunities in that perspective. When it comes to sort of social opportunities on the educational side of things, we know that lodges contribute quite a lot to the whole sort of educational level of people who work in lodges.
And from a business perspective, going back to that kind of bottom line, what kind of standards and regulations would you specifically consider would really help to bring the industry together and to help prevent the greenwashing, to prevent some of the people who maybe aren't doing things the way they should be, and to really enable everything to move forward in a very coherent, cohesive kind of fashion?
The important thing in like a destination zone like Madre de Dios is to ensure quality. So it's good for everybody that the quality of the product, the ecotourism experience is as good as possible. And you also need to ensure that the experience itself isn't impacting negatively on both the environment or on the social aspect here. Standards are really important, certification is really important, making sure that lodges and guides and other workers, stick to certain minimum standards, such that we don't have, fly-by-night operators who will bring down the image of the whole region. What you don't want are regulations or standards which are really impossible to reach.
Yes.
Particularly for newcomers into the industry. Else you just increase the barriers to entry, and the industry is not going to grow.
Do you think there's any way in the future, and perhaps more widely about the future of ecotourism in this part of the world, that we might see certain labels which might appear in the travel agents in the States or in the UK or in the EU, whereby the average person could purchase with confidence into an ecotourism experience?
Certification labels, which I think are the term you're trying to get at, definitely really important, and there are labels here already. The Rainforest Alliance is probably the most important one at present, and they're doing a very important job of trying to pull as many lodges under their wing and trying to encourage them to fulfill minimum standards in order to attain a label that they can then use to market their own operations. You want green labels to result in higher revenues down the line, because that's the incentive that the ecotourism lodges have to implement, of course, minimum standards here. In addition to these, there are also various types of environmental awards out there.
Yeah, that's
and there are good examples of lodges, winning these awards, and these awards also, being used again as a marketing tool, but very, very effectively. It's a known fact that yes, winning awards that ecotourism clients abroad recognise is important.
Instead of saying you will do this or you won't achieve this or you have to do that, we're going to say if you can do this, we will give you these incentives to continue your good work in an environmentally benign way. So I don't know if you have anything to say about how those kind of aspects might fit into the broader mix here.
I would completely agree with you that sort of the incentive model is going to be actually more powerful, particularly in a developing country like Peru, where it's quite easy to get away with bad practice. Incentivizing and encouraging good practices is what it's all about.
Yeah, okay. And perhaps we can also talk a little bit about the role of partnerships here, because clearly businesses can only achieve so much by themselves in this context. There's the role for the NGO, perhaps that's an advisory role, perhaps that's a role to come in and actually help these businesses along that path. And then of course there's the government's role as well. So
again, you've hit the nail on the head there in terms of sort of collaboration. Ecotourism will improve immensely with more collaboration. And the NGO, sort of conservation organisation sector, has access to lots of really useful information. And again, it's access to information that lodges will probably require to improve their environmental standards, for example. There are NGOs here that are sort of looking at this sort of ecotourism standards development, which is really good to see. And so there's a growing group of lodges and NGOs getting together, talking about what ecotourism really means, and trying to ensure that one will reach a minimum standard for the destination as a whole.
And perhaps finally you could, I don't know if you have a personal vision for how you'd like to see the future developing here in this part of the world. So I guess if you maybe had a one-liner to describe how will Madre de Dios be in 10 years' time, how will ecotourism be, what will be happening here, perhaps how you might consider that.
One-liner might be difficult. But I see ecotourism definitely taking over more land, taking over in the good sense of the word. In the sense that ecotourism, when it makes money, will have the power and the incentive to protect land in an effective way, and in a relatively environmentally benign way. Coupled with obviously the social aspects, making sure that ecotourism also doesn't ignore local people and job quality, then everything looks pretty good for the future. There are still large areas of intact forests with great wildlife resources out there, and as long as the government can, maintain control over, chaotic deforestation activities like mining and extensive agriculture, then I think ecotourism has a good future here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.